Welcome to this episode of the Superyacht Laundry podcast. I want to say Happy New Year to everybody because this is my first recording of 2026. And I've got a special guest. She's putting up with my, slightly, I'm not as bad as I was, but I am still a little bit sick. I managed to catch the bug going round. But Amelia from CrewPass, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. And I don't mind that you're sick at all.
I'm not as bad as I was. I was thinking at one point, like last week, I'm like, I'm going to have to. I had no voice. I lost my voice completely. So now it's back. But it's a little bit husky, so a little bit sexy. Not that there's any men listening to my podcast. So sorry, lady. But yeah, I've got a little bit of a husk going on at the moment. But obviously, known you for a while. Know you're very active, got a lot of things going on, but obviously mainly know you through CrewPass. So wanted you to get on because I want to talk about some stuff that's going on with women. And also CrewPass and the whole security check has been a bit of a hot topic last year, for a number of reasons. But we need to start at the beginning. So before Amelia ended up on a superyacht, what were you doing?
Before superyachting, I was quite young. So I started the industry when I was 21 after doing a degree in psychology counselling, which I think has massively helped me.
100% that help you on board straight out the gate. You'll be like, what have I done? Is this a psych ward or am I actually on a yacht?
It's amazing for case studies. So did my degree. I met a boy when I was doing my degree and he was doing his cadetship at UKSA. I obviously followed love into the yachting industry, which I think is what loads of people do. And yeah, I'm really pleased that happened. I felt like it was very meant to be that I was in the industry and I was in it for 9 years.
So he was lovely. It was living the dream, like try and get a couple's job straight away. Was it all? No. Were you in Antigua straight out of the way, drinking on Pigeon Beach?
No. I think we tried long distance for about 2 years and we were both on a 5-1 contract, which I still can't believe we managed to do. So we saw each other twice a year. We never attempted to even get a couple's job because we were both so green and so young. And then nothing massively bad happened. We just both grew into different people because we were so young and kind of just stepped away from each other.
There's big drought periods as well. Not being funny or anything. You're 21 and you're not, twice a year. That's not enough.
Quite young, both in different worldwide locations. But yeah, obviously ended things with him, but it was a really great time working on yachts. I was on 5 different boats, all of different sizes. I got to head of housekeeping within, I think, 3.5, 4 years, and then stuck in that role right up until the end with a short stint as interior manager, which I absolutely hated. I'm a housekeeper through and through and don't love service.
When did you realise that? When were you like, I actually don't like people? Because I was like, all I wanted was service. I found like into the housekeeping side. We all have to do it, but I preferred the interacting with the guests and stuff. Did you when was it that you were like, I don't want to do this?
I think it was quite early on. My first job was as a service steward on a charter yacht, so I was really lucky to have gotten that. Did 3 months there. It was just a seasonal position. Thought it was okay, but then went for 2.5 years as a housekeeper. Loved it. Thought I wanted to go back into service, so then did a year as a service stew. Hated it.
Really?
Went down in size to a 55 metre, which is what I think you need to do if you want to step up. Got a second stew relief chief position and then stepped back onto big boys as head of housekeeping. And I just really loved it. I loved the routine. I loved everything. I loved the lack of contact with guests. It was so great. And when I first got that position, I had a lot of stews who were like really wanted to be in service, and the ones that were in my team didn't want to be there. So I created this Instagram account called Bougie Blankets Fabulous Folds. And I made the girls create different blankets every day. And we made a bit of like a social media platform around it. And we created turn down notes and gifts and themes and fun stuff and housekeeping.
Wow.
Where everyone at the end of like a few trips wanted to be in housekeeping over service because we had so much fun. So
it must be nice not having, I suppose the guest side of things does put a bit of pressure. You can't, once you know the routine, you've got it down for, housekeeping. You have got a bit of space to just enjoy it. It's not punishment necessarily. Like you can, you get more time to yourself.
Yeah. And also I quite like that housekeeping is like a cabin gets called and you as a team go there together, you do it quickly and you're all together and you're all laughing and you're all making jokes. Whereas in service, it's very rigid. You must do things a certain way. Everyone is watching you. It can be quite singular, even though you are part of a team. And it also can be quite slow. Like when I was interior manager, I used to have to stand by a table just in case they needed something for the entire meal service. And I couldn't get it for them. I had to radio it. So I'd stand there and be like, Mr. Blah, blah, wants another water. I'd just stand there the whole time. I found it so boring. My brain just started internally rotting. So
There's only so much fun you can have in the pantry. So you got to be quiet. Like it's, hanging out in the pantry, like waiting to see what you needed or if you needed. Whereas, I never really thought about it like that.
Yeah. I loved housekeeping. It was the best. Ended on a really cool world explorer for 2.5, nearly 3 years as head of house. Loved it.
So working with a team of girls, because obviously you would have gone to uni and obviously friends and stuff like that. But, it sounds like you got really into having like a really good bunch of girls to work with.
Yeah, definitely. So on my last boat, I had a team of shared 16 between me and the lead service. I think my team was 9. They were all great. I mean, you have to learn to adapt pretty quickly with each personality type and nationality because we were a really multinational boat. We had to be really careful with different cultural bits. But yeah, it was a great team. Obviously, your normal amount of drama and stuff like that rolled in. But apart from that, they're relatively cool.
That's a big bunch of women as well, like going from a 55 metre to teams that big with women.
Yeah.
I can't imagine it was all plain sailing.
No, absolutely wasn't. But most of the time it was okay. I think the main thing was all of the culture mishmash and everyone getting on and people not being offended by things like tone of voice or directive language or like physical touch in any way. Like some cultures find that really offensive. Some are fine with it. And just everyone knowing where their boundaries are for themselves and also for other people.
So it's something you end up, it's nice to have boats that think about those things, just don't assume that everybody gets on and everybody's the same or make it to be the same when they're not. So obviously time on board, give me a highlight. When was your that pinch me moment? You were on board and where were you? Were you pumping a certain cushion going,
Going the best cushion I've ever touched.
Beautiful silk from somewhere?
It was 1,000% that. I would say where the world shut down due to COVID and I was stuck in South America and Central America, as much as it was a bit rubbish at the time and we couldn't go home and we were having the COVID test like once a week, which was ridiculous. We got isolated in Alaska for a while and that was really cool. There was no tourists there. We were going on fishing trips. We were doing big hikes. I'm quite outdoorsy, so I love that sort of stuff. Bears or the whales. I was working with a really nice team at that point, one of my favourite teams that I've had. And it was really, that was probably a highlight for me, being in that situation when I knew that back in the UK, people were, trapped at home and having to do that in small groups and mapping to the NHS every Thursday and doing Zoom quizzes, like
lining up outside Sainsbury's a metre apart outside.
Yeah.
One bonkers stuff. But I mean, Alaska was, it must have been breathtaking.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. The people are really friendly and just the nature there is incredible. So, loved it.
Polar bears are a bit scary.
There were no polar bears there.
No. Well, there are bears there, though.
Brown and black, I think.
Or black. Either or. I'm not. No. Scary bears.
You had a little bell that you jingle, though. It's quite fun. You jingle.
A jingle bell.
If you see them, you shout, "Go away, bears! Go away!" And you jingle your thing, and they go away. It's fun.
Like dinner time. Come.
Bam, really tasty. Just
yum. Wow, that would have been quite amazing. When obviously there are highs and lows on board. What would you say is a low that you struggled with during your time?
I would say just like the low for me is more of a feeling than like one singular thing that I could point out. And I think that feeling is one of like disrespect or non-protection in certain situations, as you know, which we've spoken about before. The yachting industry can be a really dangerous place to be, particularly for a young girl. And I've felt many times throughout my career extremely unprotected in the situation I was put in, that my colleagues were put in. And I felt unsafe in quite a few quite hectic instances, which is hard to know how much you can talk about given the NDAs that we sign and all of those bits. But like I could specifically name up to 10 like quite hectic situations that involve either violence on myself or another crew member, sexual assault on myself or another crew member, shouting, aggression, violence, like loud swearing, intimidation, manipulation, gaslighting, and all of these things. And I would say that's the thing that really stripped the yachting industry away from me and made me want to leave. I love my job. I thought it was epic. Loved being head of house, loved managing a team, loved the high standards, pressure, and all of those bits. And if it wasn't for the part of me that felt, I don't feel 100% safe here, or I don't feel like I've been respected, or I don't feel like my team is safe, that makes me not want to be there.
I think not having your, not feeling safe yourself is one thing, but not being able to protect your team, I think hits even harder. Especially when you're in, head of house or, that kind of position. You're responsible for them,
Yeah. I mean, that was the worst thing. And I, like, during interviews or when I was recruiting, when I was working on specific yachts that I knew there was potentially an issue, I would specifically hire slightly older girls, even if I was told to, get whatever, I would always make sure that they had a decent head on their shoulders, that they had lived experience of knowing what their boundaries are, and that they had that ability to say no or be able to kind of fight for themselves, so that if they were in a situation where I couldn't protect them or I wasn't around, that I knew that they and themselves were strong enough to say no or to bring it up with me. Because some people, they're worried about being fired or being completely disregarded, so they don't report things. But I would always make sure to hire girls that knew that was fine, and I would consistently have chats with them about, if this happens, you come to me. If this happens, you come to me. I will take it from there.
It is that's genuine management, though. That's a genuine team. That's what that role is, that is for, is to protect and guide, and one of those things, I don't have any, if the industry was is there a few things change? I would say it's open to any girl. But if you get a girl that's quite young, quite naive, not really had a lot of life experience, like in any, this is not just on board, but in life in general, they're vulnerable. They don't even realize how vulnerable they are because it's not been tested. They haven't been tested. But life, obviously the more years you're around, you should get better at it because it will happen more frequently. Unfortunately, women getting tested. That doesn't seem to stop in this world, especially, you would have thought by now it would have been. There is definitely a special vulnerability on board.
Yeah.
Do you think head of departments, all of them take it seriously or not? But is it like, I can name probably 2 people that I've worked for, and I'm like, you couldn't care less what happened.
It's hard to know because the ones that I recently worked with 100% have been amazing. But ones that have been above me in the past have absolutely not been. And if anything, enable behaviour and make situations much worse. And I didn't feel safe going to them when I was younger. However, now I'm at this stage, a lot of my mates that are still in the yachting industry are now heads of department. So, and I know what kind of person they are. So I feel amazing for their team that work under them. But I do not believe it to be the case for everyone. I think people jump into leadership far too early and aren't trained enough to be able to manage people and to be able to deal with certain situations appropriately.
I also think that not everybody's designed for leadership. You think about like the progression on board, there is no other position. So you have to go for leadership if you want progression. And, not everybody's good at management. They're really wrong. Like there are some people that just shouldn't, it's not in their DNA, which does, on land doesn't make any difference. You just go for a slightly different position. But obviously you're limited on what's available on board. Every job leads to a management position if you want progression. Mm-hmm. I worked for a couple. I'm just like, you should just, it's not your thing. It doesn't make any, it's not a down or on you, but it's just really hard to work for people like that.
No, for sure. For sure.
And potentially dangerous.
Definitely. I mean, it's a weird industry to work in, and you've got to have the right people in the right seats. Otherwise, you can really get yourself into dangerous, sticky spots.
Yeah, but from a female perspective, what are our options? There is no other option. It's second, you go from junior, senior, head of department, maybe second stew, chief stew. That's it. That's the pathway. And you kind of, because we can't be in it for very long, you've got to go hard and fast. Get up as high as you can to kind of sit in that wage bracket for as long as you can before you have to leave. So it's kind of, I do think, I agree with you though, more training should be mandatory. Any head of department should be doing a ton of courses on man management, but it's not expected.
No.
Not required. So when was the turning point for you going, actually, I don't know whether I want to be out here. I want to settle down, get a cat.
Get 3 cats.
3 cats.
Just a couple. I don't think NDA reasons I can say too much, but I had a very bad trip on a boat, and it really kind of gave me yachting the ick for me a little bit. And then from that experience, I thought back to my whole career, and I just thought, you know what, this isn't for me. Like, I can't continue to work in an environment where no matter how many times you report things or say something is wrong or try to do your best to protect someone, the owner is always number one priority. And I don't think that's 100% right. So there was that. Plus I was turning 30 and I, as he said, I wanted to settle down and buy some cats. So I was like, right, 1 year left. Here I go. Tried to save as much as possible. Got a house on the mortgage from the earnings I was making.
Yeah.
Smart move because I wouldn't be able to afford it now. And then came out and immediately bought myself a cat because I was like, I need to. And We weren't even going to talk
I
about
could never go back if I've got a cat.
Exactly. So that this cat was like my little anchor. And I was like, I know I will 100% not go back if I've got a cat. And I know that I find that industry a bit toxic. And I know that I'm over it. Like, I don't have the patience to put up with anything anymore. Like, I was completely done with all of the like stuff that comes with yachting, like all the negative stuff. So yeah, did that, came out, started, what was I doing? I was freelance working for Gemma, the yacht stew at the Yacht Stew Academy.
Fabulous, Gemma.
Love very much. And I'm still working for her. I built a advanced housekeeping course for her using all of my blanket knowledge, trying to get people excited about housekeeping, which I'm very passionate about.
Should get her excited about housekeeping. It's just the only depressing thing about housekeeping is when you go home. Like, my house is never going to be that organized or that clean.
I have cats, they scratch everything. Everything I own is ruined.
It's your own fault.
It's my fault. I was doing that. I did a coaching diploma. I set up my own company called Shoreside Coaching, where I was just going to coach and mentor people coming out of the industry, which is going okay. But I think I'm going to turn it into just a blog now. Because, yeah, I feel like people don't need it so much, but like reading the resources. Got a lot of blogs from other people that have come out of the industry on there. And it's really interesting to see like their pathway and where they're at now. So that's what I've done with that. And then at the start of last year, in 2025, I started working with CrewPass, which is what I'm currently working with now, which has been really great. So it's working with Conrad, the founder, who, if anyone knows him, they know him from Below Deck, which I tease him about consistently.
Conrad? Who the hell would know Conrad? What an idiot.
Poor guy. Poor guy.
So why did you fancy working for CrewPass? CrewPass. Like what?
I started off just doing copywriting for him. So I was doing all their blogs and stuff on safety. I think he just wanted like a female's perspective on experiences at sea. And I was in Bournemouth and he's in Bournemouth. So I started off doing that with him. And then he just started slowly edging me into a full-time role. And I have no idea.
Can you just do this? Can you just do that? No.
But I'm very grateful for it because, you know, he's now basically given me he has given me a full-time role, which is great, which includes all the copywriting stuff that I like, includes the marketing stuff that I like, but also it has that protective nature that kind of like links back to what I was saying about feeling of unprotection on board and how I didn't like not feeling 100% safe. So now, therefore, I'm working with a company that helps people feel just slightly more safe. So that really massively aligns with what I believe in and what my values are. So that is fabulous.
Yeah. Here's it. CrewPass is like, so anybody who's listening to this that is not aware of CrewPass, go on, like, give us your sales thing. What does CrewPass do, Amelia?
So, CrewPass is known. CrewPass is known for doing criminal history background checks and verifying profiles for crew members. They started off initially by doing this and kind of marketing basing towards individuals. So like you'd have it as your SECW and then you'd go out and you'd get your background checks just to like how you would if you were wanting to continue to roll.
Yeah, improve your chances of getting the job.
Yeah. He very quickly realised that was the wrong way to market it. He knew the mad amount of abuse that he did get at one point.
It is quite insane, the amount of use and confusion with it all as well. It's just like people like just not understanding at all.
No, but it's okay. It's okay. We're slowly making them understand. So when I joined, we changed it to going towards more like management companies, recruitment companies, fleets, and all those sorts of people. So we started at the start of last year, just obviously doing background checks as normal. Conrad has now developed it into more of a certificate compliance package. So not only do you get your criminal history, you get your ID checked, you get your social media checked, you get all of your certificates authenticated. So you can't have like that fraudulent document problem, which I have seen pop up a few times this year, which is really great. And it basically takes away the need for a compliance officer within a management company, because you've got a system that just does all of that for you. It files it away, it scans it, it records all the information. It tells you the pathway of verification, how we got to that conclusion. And then you click download and it comes in this sexy, like, and there. You know, I'm sure you've recruited before and you get all these certificates through and they're like upside down. They're labeled version 111.16 of this document. They're labeled wrong, really ugly and very annoying to look at. And you have to spend time going through, renaming, putting in a folder, doing all that stuff. You click download with us, which is one of our probably most boring, but I find most exciting features. You click one button and it downloads in a folder your name of document, your name, and like you put them all the right way around, and it's just nicer.
It's just, you're so housekeeping.
I know.
Look at it. It's just so beautiful and it's straight and it's just all categorized and it's just, look at that.
It's a lovely vibe. So that's what we lean for now. We're still doing background checks and all those bits, but we are basing ourselves as compliance checkers. So what this means for individual crew members is that if they are going onto a CrewPass approved boat, they know the people that they're working with have had a criminal history checked, have had their certificates checked. They are who they say they are. Whereas me, for example, I've worked on boats before with people with criminal records who have been arrested whilst I was on board and then let back on board, who have loads of weird bits going on. You know that one, like, I do a lot of writing on our blog for it, but I name these people a dodgy Dave. It's in no way in relation to any Dave that I know. But just for clarification, you know that like dodgy Dave, like the guy that kind of like lingers, like
it has a load of chat and a load of stories, and you know, it's one of those people who like sits in the crew mess and they're spouting off a whole load of stuff, and then you listen to it a few times, you're like, your story, that doesn't work that time. Because I'm one of those annoying people. Like if somebody's telling me a story, I'm listening, you know, and then I'm like, yeah, but that doesn't marry up to what you were saying. Oh, how the hell could you be there and there in the same place? And you're like, you're live it.
Because that's quite funky people. And I think the type of person that goes on yachts, not all, but a lot of them, are people who are escaping something. You're escaping a divorce, a bad childhood, a relationship, something, to go and put yourself in the middle of nowhere with a group of random people. Yeah, the money's good. Yeah, it's cool to travel and stuff. But realistically, your head's down a toilet for 300 days a year. And the sort of person that's escaping from something potentially has something going on in the background, in their past, that they don't want to talk about or that they're not going to share. Why aren't we checking everyone going on board?
Well, that kind of, that leads into, you know, obviously I've been, you know, I've said these things before, you know, when I heard about CrewPass and what Conrad was doing, my opinion was that, you know, it's not going to catch the dodgy ones, the ones you want to catch. It'll be kids signing up to it because they want any excuse to get ahead and get a job, you know, because obviously, like you said, Conrad, he was doing it for the individual in the beginning. But on reflection, you know, obviously talking about it, and I'm like, where are you supposed to start at this point? Because if you want to get technical about it, you know, kids that are signing up to get a job and they're just trying to do it, technically they probably don't need to get a criminal check because they probably haven't been around enough to get into that much trouble.
Yeah.
And also, I'm of the firm belief that obviously, you know, that I don't believe most women need to get it either, because we're not generally, on average, the ones that are breaking the law. And if we do break the law, it's generally something probably to do with drug possession or a driving conviction. It's not serious, you know, assaults or battery or, well, it's obviously not going to be rape. So on the face of it, there's two groups that, you know, perhaps don't need to do it. But that's not how the world works. Unfortunately, all of us have to do it. It's like the situation with the 100 mil crap at the bloody airport. just because of a few, 5 dickheads that decided to take on some kind of chemical concoction to blow up an aeroplane. Now, billions of journeys throughout time have taken longer, and we have to go through this stupid check, and I have to stand there in my socks getting checked at security because of these 5, literally just 5 dickheads that are just annoying. So with CrewPass, like you said, obviously with just the criminal side of things, we've got to start somewhere. It's a big net, getting these checks. You have to have done something pretty bad, and it has to be kind of pretty recent or in a jurisdiction where you can catch them. But at least it's something.
At least, this is the thing. I think it's more of like peace of mind for the rest of the crew. Like, at least someone is trying, or at least someone's got my back, or at least this is something that my captain or my management company are thinking of, because that then sets a precedent for how they behave if something happened. Whereas if you're not checking people, like, why is that? I can't see the reason why you wouldn't.
Well, even with the qualifications, I know one engineer that I work with, there's no way he had the qualifications he said he had. I do not believe in a million years that he had the qualifications, because some of the stuff he had to fix and stuff like that, he just couldn't do it. I'm like, how can you be whatever it is, a senior engineer if you can't fix that? I don't understand. And then you're getting big bucks, you're getting decent money, but no one's actually checked whether those qualifications are actually real. So if they're willing to lie about their qualifications, what else are they willing to lie about? And that's where you get into this, are they a pathological liar? Have they stolen? Have they, attacked people? At least starting to ask the kind of right, what kind of person are you?
Exactly. Because you can, obviously, as the whole industry has agreed, background checking is called sort of the first step, but it's not the whole picture of how to vet properly. There's loads of different other things that you could do within reference checking, making sure you're doing thorough interviews. You could also do personality tests. They're free online. You just get them to fill them out. Or any other psychometric testing. It's so interesting, and you can pull so much information from those things. But yeah, I mean, CrewPass helps solve background checks and any fraudulent docs. And then you do all your other research, and then you've got a boat full of super safe, solid people. Then you're setting a precedent already that you're interested in.
Well, no, you're setting the standard for the quality of individual that you want to work with. Like you said, it goes back to just very simple things. If you're willing to lie about that, whatever that you've got, even I have worked with one, he was a decky at the time. The guy was colorblind, and he was still managing to get his ENG1 signed off. I'm like, how is it important to be able to see colours at sea if they're on the bridge? Kind of important.
Did his ENG1 not pick up that he was colourblind?
He needs to go to this one particular person to get his ENG1.
Yeah, I've heard of that guy. And you can learn the book off by heart as well. You can learn the sequence numbers.
But don't get me wrong. The thing is, with the beauty of being at sea is those opportunities for people that, life on land is just not working. And you can go and get away and reinvent yourself and be, better and stuff like that. But I think, unfortunately, for the yachty side of things, I just don't think it's possible. It's, if you are dealing with yachts that are getting bigger and the higher net worth individuals, they aren't yachts anymore in the sense, I've said this many times, they're floating cruise ships. They are enormous things. You talked about working in a massive team of ladies. It's just not possible to run something or take that many risks on the individuals that you're hiring, without catastrophic problems.
But don't you think it's funny that if you were an owner of a yacht, you'd just assume that these checks were being done, right?
Well, that's the biggest enigma in this industry beyond, that they, it's so I went to the forum last year and they had a fantastic lady that did a talk on the end of the first day. And she was from the luxury industry. And she was like, if you were selling a Rolex, and I just got a job, in the Rolex shop, there is no way on earth they would let me go anywhere near a customer until I'd done X, Y, and Z. Because obviously they're high net worth people. You get one shot at selling this and everything else. But I can go from working in my local pub to going and working on the mega yacht and then serving somebody who's a billionaire with no silver service experience. These situations do happen. You do end up, ending up right in front. Even if it's a junior stew situation, you could be serving a drink to somebody who's off the chart net worth. So these are the people that want 7-star service, but apparently we're not going to invest in 7-star crew.
Well, I know Connie's spoken about it a lot, but his experience was that he, in his first few weeks working on a boat, was asked to take the children off to the park ashore. He got an attender and he took them off, and he didn't have kids at the time. Obviously, he's got 2 girls now, but that was something that he found quite bizarre. And then for me, I think in my first few weeks, I was asked to clean the owner's jewelry box. And it was like all of these diamonds upon diamonds. And I was just there with a toothbrush and toothpick, obviously I wasn't going to do anything, but I could have just taken that whole thing. And then what would they have done? Where would they have found it?
It's one of the, so obviously you've got work on board, you've got nannies on board. Obviously, kids are on. The nannies would have all had their checks. And you've got, deck crew getting kids in and out of the water and all sorts of things. So just stuff on land that I think the thing with CrewPass, what you guys have tried to do on land, it's just part of it. If you want to work in a bank, if you want to work in, the council, if you want to work in any health department, social services, all of these things are standard. A school, they're all mandatory. Nobody even thinks about it. It's just part of that work environment. It blows my mind how far behind the yachty world, I suppose, it is when it comes to this kind of stuff. Because like I said, it's only going to catch the most stupid and prolific bad individuals. The clever ones, will still be able to get around it, but at least it's a start. I mean, what are the worst, what's shocked you? What's ever come up in a check that you can talk about? The level of conviction that shocks you.
I mean, I would say at the moment we're getting about 1 conviction every 10 days will come through. So I think that's quite high, considering the people that we're checking, because they're all new boats coming on that we're onboarding. There's not that many checks coming through, so I think that's quite a high percentage. But the worst, social media, we do an enhanced internet scrape where it takes any digital footprint and scrapes off the internet. It's not the same as our social media one. It's way more enhanced than that. We had someone who criminal history came back fine, all clear, ID fine, clear, certificates all fine. We did their enhanced social media. They'd commented under because if you write a swear word in a comment on someone's profile who isn't private, that will flag as a rude word or whatever. So he'd commented under all these women's pictures like slag, slut, bugging bitch, all of these crazy. And I was reading through it oh my God, this is wild. And he was part of some creepy Facebook groups. And yeah, apart from that, you would think he was a normal guy. But then all of this obscene language was written under all these what appears to be random or celebrities or whatever they are, women's photographs. So that's quite wild. And I think that's quite disturbing behaviour, that if I was the higher up and they didn't proceed with the hire, they were absolutely not.
That makes it more important. That's social media stuff being more important than the actual certificates or anything else. That's crazy.
But he was fine in every other way, but you wouldn't have known unless you'd run this specific.
Yeah, you get him on board, he's going to be an absolute knobhead.
Yeah. And he'll get on another boat that doesn't do background checks. And he'll be having a lovely time, but internally he's got all these quite deep, dark thoughts or quite unhealthy. I don't know what was wrong with him, but It was quite hectic, the things that he was writing on social media platforms. Very bizarre.
Yeah.
Really attacking of women. And the Facebook groups he was part of were very also women negative. Can't remember exactly what they were, but that was probably the most staggering me, was seeing that and being like, oh God. And the worry of knowing if we hadn't found this,
He would be on board.
he'd be on board. But the thing is, if any other boat that then employs him even just puts his name into CrewPass, we'll be able to flag that now. So if everyone got on the system, there would be no thinking.
Well, I mean, like you said, that obviously then that's like the next generation of them, having to go into a private group to say horrible shit.
Yeah.
Being out in public. Some people, like, what is wrong with people? Then to be fair, women can be just as bad and just as vile, like to other women and to men. It's that weird thing of going online and you just seem to think that you can say and do whatever you want. And I don't get those people, I really don't. I mean, unless you're going to say it to their faces in life. I mean, the only thing with that case in particular you were talking about, I wouldn't want him to start talking to a woman like that to her face. Shit. Do you know what I mean? Because that's got to come out after a few years, like being that not. Yeah.
The thing that normally comes up on our social media reports is it's normally chefs and they get flagged for pictures of knives because chefs love knives.
They do love them. That's a bit unfair.
But it's fun. And then you send it off to the hirer and they're like, oh, cool. Like, this isn't a problem because this is normal for a chef to be quite happy about their new set of knives and they put them on Instagram or whatever. But
knives are an offensive weapon.
Knives get flagged. Any swear word gets flagged. If you're smoking in a picture, that gets flagged. Alcohol in a picture will be flagged.
Wow.
Every single picture that's flagged.
Well, I would never get a job again. Like, the amount of chicks with me with a glass in my hand, that's it, I'm screwed. Like, there are no pictures with her not having a glass in her hand. No, that would be quite disturbing. But that's the way, I suppose that's where the world is going, I guess. Yeah. That's really interesting. What do you with CrewPass and obviously its developments and stuff like that, does it seem like the industry is taking, this is something that we're going to go, it's a selling point to a lot of the management companies, like, we do in-house checks, so you don't have to family office.
That was such a good tagline. May I use that?
Right. Like, I could do it. I could go work for old comrades. You want me to pitch it?
Oh, that would be cute. To be honest, yeah, particularly since we've implemented the certificate compliance, which Conrad will go into more detail over the next few weeks via LinkedIn, and I'm sure in the podcast with you as well. But it's a really cool, very nerdy, some would say potentially boring for people that aren't interested in it, bit of software that we built that I think is hugely beneficial within the industry. And since we launched that in, I would say, October, we've had a massive uptake, like absolutely massive. And I think also since obviously Paige Bell earlier last year, that after that, there was a massive uptake as well, which is a sad way to get checks through something like that.
Well, the Paige situation is just, it's horrific. But, obviously we talked about it extensively. The only reason we're talking about Paige is because she's dead. If she'd just been raped, there's no way the industry would have been talking about it. There's no way. Like, if she was alive, it wouldn't get anything. So the only, it's not an upside, but the only reason that there is obviously the outrage that, well, how has this happened? Well, anybody who's worked in the industry, we now clearly can tell you why it's happened or how it's ended up happening or where the safeguarding issues have always been. But maybe her legacy is the fact that, unfortunately, because she has died, it has kind of forced a hand or two, to say, yeah, we are taking it seriously and we are doing more and we are doing CrewPass or whatever, we are investing more into seeing who we're putting in these environments.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Awful. That was an awful situation. But
it is an awful situation. Could it have been avoided? I don't know. That's one of the, hindsight is an amazing thing, potentially. But like you said, if he had all the checks done, so certificates all clear, no criminal convictions, all clear, the only thing you could potentially catch him on would be social media if he's outwardly outspoken about it. So at least that's something else, that's something else to add to the arsenal that might stop people that are capable of something so horrific even getting on board. I do think the place, unfortunately, as amazing as the industry is, it can be a perfect hiding place for some vile people because of the lack of communication. I think one of the things, connecting the dots, is like you said, he'll be flagged in. You've got his details. If anybody does you, flagged again. Because I don't thoughts like that disappear.
no, I don't think so.
So CrewPass is on the up. You've got a busy 2026. I imagine. We just like to finish podcasts. So obviously their last series I asked us that questions. I've decided to change my questions slightly.
Okay, fun.
The most annoying thing a cabin mate has ever done. One thing that just used to drive you up the wall when you were in close quarters. Or was it you that was annoying?
No, I don't think it was me. I feel quite lucky with cabin mates. I've generally had really cool ones. I think some people take a phone call quite late, which is not so much of a vibe. Like I was sharing with a girl that she had a boyfriend at home or something, but he was in the UK and we were in the States, or there was a timeline. So from like 10 p.m. she'd be on the phone having big catch-ups. Whereas I'm quite an early bird, so I like to be asleep by about 10 p.m, being the loser head housekeeper that I am.
You're like in her bunk talking and you're like laying there going,
yeah.
What?
Well, I would say that's the most annoying. However, I'm very directive. So if that did go on too long, I would just whack my head down. Can you do that outside? I'm going to sleep. So nothing too bad. I'm pretty good at that. And letting people know when something perhaps not made me feel good.
So no gross stories.
No gross stories. No, but I look forward to hearing other people's gross stories.
Right. Yeah, there's a few gross stories. The funniest thing, it's not funny. Well, I thought it was funny at the time. It's probably quite early. If you listen to this, you'll know who you are. But, me and this chief steward was sharing a cabin. And it was a bit prickly between us. Like we had completely different working styles. We weren't getting on particularly, but we were both trying our best. And we were both in bed and, I was reading and everything else. And this one particular day, we were just at each other, like we snapping at each other. We were getting to the end of the time of us working together. And she just wound me up all day. Anyway, you go to bed, you don't think anything about it. I was reading in bed. She had her eye mask on. She was on the bottom bunk. And she goes, hey. Anyway, I roll over and I knock my book off my bunk and it smacks her straight in the face. And then I spent literally, it's quite a decent book as well. And it literally straight on the middle of the head. And I was like, she's going to think I did that on purpose. She was 100%. She was like, what the hell is going on? I'm like, I'm sorry, it just fell off. She was like, it just fell off. I'm like, it just fell off. It did just fall off. And then obviously, because we'd had I was laughing. It doesn't really.
That is awkward.
I was like, I honestly didn't. I hadn't thought of it. But if I had, I would have been a really good thing because it annoyed me all day. But I didn't. But I 100%, she thought I did it.
I semi-believe you.
I didn't do it on purpose. But you couldn't, if I'd leant over and positioned the book, so over her face to hit her right on the sweet spot, right here, because she's got an eye mask on, she can't move.
I feel like you're making it worse by saying things like sweet spot.
I couldn't have done it. If I tried to have done it, it wouldn't have gone out so well. It's 100%. Lo and behold, we didn't end up much longer.
Celebrate. You can't win them all.
But yeah, cabin mate. God bless.
Very fun.
Thank you very much for coming on my podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Yeah, I'm sure we'll have CrewPass on again. But in the meantime, enjoy your time with your cats.
I always do. Been a pleasure.
If you've enjoyed this episode of the Superyacht Laundry podcast, we've got a whole bunch of new episodes coming out. So please come and join us again. Until the next time, dear listener, take care. Bye-bye.
Boom.